Everyone take a deep breath. In through your nose, out through your mouth. I know what I'm about to say on this show will probably trigger some of you, but I need you to hear me out, hear my entire point, and not just the first minute before you jump to any conclusions. Let's start the show. You're listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking to my ball. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good afternoon, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Sunday, September the 15th, Dan Marino's birthday. Happy birthday, Dan. I am your host, Michael Oliva. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about in the world of the Miami Dolphins. So put on your seatbelt, sit back, and let's go through it all. But before we get to any of that, as always, today's show is brought to you by Caneswear. Caneswear is the place to go for officially licensed apparel for the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Heat, the Hurricanes, your Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, and all of the professional and college teams in South Florida. Looking for the latest jersey, a gift, or the newest hat to hit the market of your favorite South Florida team? Check out Caneswear for their overwhelming selection of sports apparel. Located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida, Caneswear has it all. Not in South Florida? Don't worry. Visit Caneswear.com to shop their inventory from the comfort of your home. And yes, they ship internationally as well. Caneswear.com is the spot that Miami fans shop. That's Caneswear.com. Caneswear.com. All right, let's start off with obviously the elephant in the room, and that's the Tua Tagovailoa story. Everything going on with the Miami Dolphins quarterback and the Miami Dolphins quarterback situation as a whole. So, I mean, it stinks because right now you got the Miami Dolphins are 1-1. They looked bad in the first half versus Jacksonville week 1. Looked okay in the second half. And then they looked bad for all 4 quarters versus the Bills on Thursday night. It kind of feels like, and now with the quarterback situation in limbo, it just feels like we're on the verge of a lost season, a lot of hopelessness among fans of the Dolphins. It stinks because the past 2 seasons, you've seen this team improve. You've seen this team win a lot of regular season games, even if they don't beat the good teams. You've seen them make the playoffs. And it's only September 15th, and right now it's just very disappointing how this season has started and everything that they're having to navigate within the organization and as fans having to see this and go through this again with the concussion situation. But before I start, let me say this. We are all adults here. We can hold multiple thoughts in our head at the same time. This is not a black or white conversation where you must pick a side and be locked in on one side or the other. This is a nuanced topic that as fans and the organization is going to have to navigate in the next few weeks and months and really over the next year. And while one of our thoughts that we can hold in our head is sending all of our best wishes and positive vibes to Tua and his family for a speedy recovery and wishing him nothing but the best, we can also hold another thought in our head simultaneously that this is a team we root for, and where do we go from here? And let's start with Tua. I am not going to sit here and be a talking head saying he must retire or anything like that. And there is a report out Sunday morning from the NFL Network that Tua doesn't plan on retiring. Awesome. But honestly, I don't care. And I say I don't care, not in an insulting way, but in that his body, his decision. If he wants to hang it up and never play again, I applaud him, wish him well, and I get it and totally understand it. If he wants to keep playing football, as this report said this morning, and he wants to take the risks that come along with having a series of concussions like he has, cool. I applaud him. Hope he can come back soon. I get it, and I totally understand. So when I say I don't care, That's where I'm coming from. I don't care. It's not my body. It's not my decision. And he can do whatever he wants. So if he wants to keep playing and take the risks, knowing full well what might be with him when he turns 40, 45, 50, and later in life, that's on him. He has all the information. Per the report, he's going to meet with neurologists this week. We're going to lay everything out to him. So I'm okay with whatever Tua does because, again, not my body, not my decision. But, and here's the but, whatever he decides, this team, the Miami Dolphins, this organization, the team that we root for, has a lot of tough decisions to make moving forward. Because no matter what Tua does, retire, play, comes back this year, maybe takes off the rest of the year, comes back next year. The business of football and the business of putting a winning product on the field is going to move on. And the Dolphins are going to have to navigate their quarterback situation differently as of Thursday night, like say midnight Friday morning, than it did Thursday morning at 7 a.m. The Miami Dolphins have a quarterback problem, both in the short term and in the long term. Let me explain. In the short term, we're going into week 3 of the 2024 season, and you really don't want to totally punt on the entire season and wave the white flag in week 3. This team has too much talent to do that. But Skylar Thompson clearly isn't the answer. He ain't Earl Morrall. He ain't going to lead you anywhere. If you're thinking you're going to get lightning in a bottle, 1972, this ain't the 72 team. That team was loaded with Hall of Famers, and Skylar Thompson ain't Earl Morrall. A week from today in Seattle, it's probably going to be ugly, folks, with Skylar Thompson under center. Okay? And since we don't know how long Tua will be out this year, is it a week? Is it 3 weeks? Is it a month? Is it 6 weeks? We don't know. Miami must make a move at quarterback. Now, we know the names that are out there, Ryan Tannehill, Tom Brady, Jimmy Garoppolo, the endless list of names. They need to do something. Because if they do nothing and go with Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle, that is the sign that Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel have truly given up on the season in early September. And I don't think they can do that. Now, I know they got job security, both of them. Mike McDaniel just signed a long-term extension. Chris Grier, he never getting fired by Mr. Ross, clearly. But they cannot punt on a season in week 3. And if you go with Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle for more than a couple weeks, if Tua's going to be back in a month, fine. Go with it. That's fine. But if Tua's going to be out 6 or 8 weeks, you got to do something. Because that is just organizational malpractice at that point. So we'll see what they do in the short term in this Dolphins quarterback problem. Because Tim Boyle can't play. I have no idea why they signed him. Watch any tape of Tim Boyle in 2023 with the Jets and with Houston. I mean, incompetent isn't even the word I would use. It's worse than that. And Skylar Thompson, had a miserable preseason. He just didn't stink as bad as Mike White. They need to do something in the short term. But here's where it gets more interesting. The Dolphins have a problem long term at quarterback, and this is more of a challenge. And again, I don't care what Tua does for the reasons I stated at the top of the show. But Miami, this next offseason coming up, I'm talking February, March, April, must find their quarterback of the future. And I don't say that to trigger people. I'm saying it because it's a reality. You cannot run a successful organization this way with the most important position on the team who's consistently out. And I know you're saying, well, 2023, he didn't miss any games. That is now, as we sit today, we got new information as of Thursday night. 2023 was clearly the outlier and not the norm. 2024, 2022, 2021, 2020, and his entire time at Alabama, that's the norm. This guy can't stay healthy. 2023 was great, but that's the outlier. And you have to look at that as the outlier. And I admit, and I'm not going to start to, change my stance. Now, I was all on board with giving Tua a contract extension. About 1 month ago now, roughly. I said it was worth the risk, and I stand by that. Because I thought after the 2023 season in which he played a full season and he didn't get injured, that he learned not to hold on to the ball too long, and he learned to slide to avoid hits. Well, I was wrong. And apparently a lot of other people were wrong too. Because Tua at this point, and this isn't the knock, this isn't to pile on, cannot be trusted to protect himself if he's not going to slide on plays like that to avoid hits. And since he can't be trusted, if you run the Dolphins, if you own the Dolphins, you have to factor that in how you build your quarterback room, and you have to have a very strong plan B. And a very strong plan B goes beyond having a solid backup quarterback. You want a solid backup quarterback if you're Cincinnati. Joe Burrow, hurts his wrist, hurts his knee. Those aren't injuries that, might lead someone to retire. Okay. Or if you are or if you're like the Cleveland Browns where Watson's always hurt for some little nagging injury, you need a good, solid backup quarterback for those teams. The Dolphins got to go beyond that because now this is either his third or his fourth concussion for Tua since he's been in the NFL, not counting anything that happened in high school or college. And it seems like with everyone he gets this point forward, the talk of retirement does become a little bit stronger. And again, if he doesn't want to retire, that's fine. But if you're the Dolphins, you have to wonder, is the next one the one that will force him into retirement? So the Dolphins need a long-term answer here at quarterback, even if Tua does return, because the next one he might not return from. And the Dolphins cannot be caught flat-footed. So whether it's Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers, Shadir Sanders, Jackson Dart, Drew Aller, however you pronounce his last name, I'm sorry, whoever, the Dolphins must be in play for one, probably in next year's draft in round 1 or round 2. And I don't care what Tua's contract is. Because the contract, look, I don't care. Again, I don't care if Tua comes back to the field and plays this year or next year. Miami can take whoever they draft and just have him be the number 2 quarterback waiting in the wings to take over. Because this cannot continue time and time again with the expectation that Miami's going to win the division, win playoff games, or win a Super Bowl when your quarterback. I mean, this was a routine hit Thursday night, just like it was a routine hit versus the Packers on Christmas Day a couple years ago that caused this concussion. This wasn't some vicious hit. This was pretty routine. And if he's not going to slide, look, we gave Tua the extension. We took the risk. Nobody's sending him to the curb. No one said you got to cut him today. No one's saying it. He can still start, but you better have a plan B ready to go because you're not going to win this way every year. You got to have a quarterback of the future because there are outs in that extension that they gave Tua. Like after 2025, I think, or 2026, there might be one. And I hate to say it, but the Dolphins as an organization, nothing against the person, nothing against the player. He's a great guy. When he's healthy, he's a pretty good damn quarterback too. They're going to have to move on because you can't win this way in this league. And if you're trying to put a winning product on the field, you got to have a quarterback who can A, take some routine hits, and B, has to think of the greater good and slide. It just is what it is. So, and then you factor in, we got a general manager who refuses to build a respectable, who's going to pay a quarterback $230 million. And he refuses to build him a quality offensive line to protect him. So even when he's not, refusing to slide and stuff like that, he's taking hits anyways because they just, for the life of me, refuse to spend any money on guards and centers. And no matter how bad it gets, and it was bad. It was so bad Thursday night, and I know the offensive line wasn't the reason they got hurt, but it was so bad, the quality of play by that offensive line. And this ain't going to, magically fix itself moving forward the rest of the season. It's embarrassing that you're going to pay a quarterback all that money and not, put a respectable offensive line in front of him. So that's the Dolphins' long-term problem at quarterback. And I know for some fans, they don't want to hear it. And they love Tua so much, and they're such big fans, they don't want to think about it. But if you root for this team, if you root for this organization, if you were a fan of this team before Tua got here, and you plan on being a fan of this team whenever his final game is after he is no longer here, that's the best thing for the organization. Is next offseason in this draft, get your quarterback of the future. Because Tua is, I think where we are with Tua in 2024, he's your quarterback right now. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because when he's healthy, he can sling it with the best of them. And he can be your quarterback whenever he comes back this season to play. He can be your quarterback next season. But there's going to come time in that contract where there's like a reasonable out. You have to move on at that point. I mean, unless he leads you to a Super Bowl or something, you're going to have to move on because you cannot win with a quarterback who cannot take routine hits and who is going to not slide to protect himself in situations where that's like a very smart play to do. It's frustrating as a fan. And, I know there's already some fans out there. It's not me. There's some fans who are just punt on the season. Let's tank. Let's do arson for Carson, which is a quarterback from Georgia, Carson Beck. Burn it down this year, lose them all. Let's just take Carson Beck. Or don't win for Quinn, the quarterback from Texas. Quinn, I'm not there yet. I'm not tanking. It's only week 3. But in a month, if we're like 1-5 or 1-6, yeah, then you can sign me up for the tank. Then you can sign Skyler. You're the quarterback the rest of the year. Tim Boyle, I might even start you a few games. Let them play because at that point you do have to think about the greater good. If Miami's 1-5 or 1-6 before Tua can come back, hey, what are you bringing them back for? I mean, your season's over at that point, and then you can start thinking about the bigger picture and the greater good. But I'm not there yet. It's week 3. Let's see what happens next week in Seattle. I don't think it's going to be pretty in Seattle, but I've been surprised before. We're not there yet. But if you're the Dolphins, that's the conundrum you're facing at quarterback. What do we do in 2023, the short term, to try and salvage the season heading into week 3? Who do we bring in? Who do we sign? And what do we do next offseason, knowing our quarterback just can't stay healthy? And, his future in Miami might be the next 2 or 3 years, and then we're probably going to have to move on, and we better have something ready to go so we're not caught flat-footed. So that's kind of where the Dolphins are with the quarterback situation. I'm sure we'll get more news probably early this week on Tua when he meets with the medical professionals and they tell him what they're going to tell him. But it sounds like he's not going to retire, which, again, I don't care. And I don't say that in an insulting way. His body, his choice. He wants to retire? Great. He wants to keep playing? Great. It really doesn't affect me or my everyday life, just like it doesn't affect you in your everyday life, and why you, the listener, or anyone in America should tell him what to do. It's his body, his choice. All right, before I get to the rest of the show, big shout out to everyone listening at finheaven.com. Everyone go to finheaven.com, the largest Miami Dolphins message board on the internet. Also, a shout out to our friends at the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page. Everyone, please, if you're on Facebook, please go and be a part of the I Am a Miami Dolphins fan Facebook page, the best Miami Dolphins Facebook page on the internet. And wherever you're listening to this podcast, whether Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Audible, hit that subscribe button. Just because, things aren't looking rosy right now with the Dolphins, we're not going anywhere. We're going to have shows each and every day of the week. And you don't want to miss those episodes. Some days we'll have 2 shows. You don't want to miss them. And so you want to hit that subscribe button and listen. Also, Dolphins Talk Extra. If you want more content for the Dolphins, you want exclusive content, you want more podcasts, exclusive podcasts, you want to hear myself, Josh Aaron, talk about topics not with the Miami Dolphins. So when, we're down in the dumps all about the Dolphins, we might do a show on reality TV, or we might do a show on the Major League Baseball playoffs, or we might do a show on the hockey season coming up. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. It's only $2 or $3 a month. We have a private message board because I know sometimes interacting on Twitter and some other social media outlets is just a pain because you put up like an innocent quote or you put up an innocent opinion and somebody's jumping down your back screaming at you. We have a private message board where you can talk about anything. Talk about the Dolphins. You can talk about, other sports. You can talk about reality TV. It's a fun time. So everyone go to it's only $3 a month or $5 a month, whichever tier you want to sign up to. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. All right. So we already spoke about Tua and the quarterback. Now let's talk about Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel. I wrote 2 articles the past few days that you can read up at DolphinsTalk.com. One on Mike McDaniel and how, with all the talent he has on this roster and his inability to win big games against teams that are good, his philosophy isn't working. And then I also wrote an article about Chris Grier Sunday morning about, is there any accountability ever in Miami? The guy's been in Miami since the year 2000. It's been 24 years. He's been the GM since 2016. He's had full power since 2019, and there's never any results. So I want to talk about those 2. Let's start with Grier because it's a little bit easier. There needs to be some accountability. Like, how do you pay a quarterback $230 million and give him that garbage of an offensive line? Like, how do you let Robert Hunt walk? Find his replacement in Jack Driscoll, who had a good training camp compared to the other offensive linemen on the team, like Liam Eichenberg, Robert Jones, Lester Cotton. Jack Driscoll was arguably the best of the bunch, and he doesn't even make the opening day roster. You cut him with your final cuts. Like, how do you watch Mike White and Skylar Thompson suck for the entire month of August, training camp and preseason games? Skylar sucked a little bit less, but make no mistake, he still sucked. And you don't address the backup quarterback position when many players like Tyler Huntley, who went to a Pro Bowl a couple years back, were available to be claimed, and you don't put in a waiver claim and you sit on your hands. Like, how did this offseason, when you let Christian Wilkins and Raekwon walk on your defensive line, and you go out there and sign Neville Gallimore, Jonathan Harris, Tier Tart, Benito Jones, and Isaiah Mack, 5 guys, and only one in Jones makes the roster. You cut the rest. Like, how did we go from one of the youngest teams in the league to the oldest team in the league in one offseason? Like, how do you sign Odell Beckham Jr. knowing he's injured and thinking that's not a big deal? And also, how do you, it came out this past weekend, the Dolphins never offered Andrew Van Ginkel a contract. So, a young, ascending, up-and-coming player, you don't even offer him a contract. Even if it's a low-ball, cheap offer, you don't even have the courtesy to give him that. You just give him no offer. You go out there and sign Shaq Barrett, who, A, old, B, used you versus the Jets to get more money out of you, and C, then retires prior to the season on the eve of training camp, and you don't even give even if it's a low-ball, cheap offer, Andrew would have said no to. You don't even offer him one. Like, who runs an organization this way, and who's allowed to keep their job? Especially when you have zero results to back up anything you've ever done, because you've been here all these years and you've never won a playoff game in your life. Especially since you've been in power. The fans, the Miami Dolphins fans, who pay good money, lots of money, demand answers. Look, I don't need to be Miss Cleo to tell you that the rest of this season, we probably took a left turn and we're probably going to go off the rails here real soon. And it's probably going to get ugly. And this fan base has endured 24 years without a playoff win. We've endured off-the-field embarrassment after off-the-field embarrassment, from a coach who was doing lines of coke in his office to an offensive line coach and other offensive linemen who were bullying another player, to multiple tampering charges that cost us multiple draft picks, and to claims of racism versus the owner. This fan base deserves better, and it doesn't deserve Chris Grier standing at a podium, saying that we all laugh at you behind the scenes. You fans, you media members who question us, we laugh at you behind the scenes. Laughing at your fan base. Get the bleep out of here with that. You aren't above questioning. You do not get the benefit of the doubt with your resume, which, by the way, Chris, if you haven't noticed, your resume is a blank piece of paper with no accomplishments, just in case you haven't realized. You've done nothing in this league. You've done nothing but survive and just be able to keep your job no matter how much you fail. And for you to sit there in that condescending tone, reeking of arrogance, saying that you and Mike McDaniel laugh and have a good chuckle behind the scenes when fans and media bring up valid questions and concerns, enough. There needs to be accountability in Miami. This guy's had full power since 2019. It's 2024, and there are 0 results. And I hate to break it to Chris, having the number 1 offense in the league is not a result. Just having a wild card spot in back-to-back years when you don't get past round 1 of the playoffs is not a result. A result is actually winning something of consequence. And if this is going to continue, where Chris Grier is some, Supreme Court judge who has a job for life, then it's up to the fans to take action. Speak with your wallet. Don't financially support the organization. Demand change. If Stephen Ross ain't going to make change, it's up to the fans to force him to make a change. Don't buy tickets. Don't buy merchandise. Don't give them a freaking dime. Okay? Chris Grier has run this organization to the ground. This season, again, don't have a crystal ball. Pretty sure it's going to go sideways and not have a happy ending here. It's time to stand up and speak with your wallet, folks. That's the only way anything's going to change. And if you're not, you're just going to just be a lapdog, and no matter what crappy product they put in front of you, accept it, well, then you get the team you deserve. Because trust me, Mr. Ross and Tom Garfinkel and this organization loves money over you. How do you know that? If you buy season tickets to the Miami Dolphins, they don't send you a keychain. They don't send you a hat. They don't even send you a stinking bumper sticker. They send you a postcard where they ask you for more money. That's what they think of you. You're just their ATM machine. Well, hurt them more accounts, and then trust me, you'll see change. Stop giving them money. Stop going to games. Stop supporting them financially, and trust me, you'll see Mr. Ross take action when it comes to his failure of a general manager he's employed for way too long. Now on to McDaniel. Let me say this up front before I talk about Mike McDaniel. And I'm going to repeat it a couple times because I know people who listen to this hear what they want to hear. I am not saying Mike McDaniel should be fired. Let me say that again. I am not saying Mike McDaniel should be fired. I'm going to say it a third time so people understand. I am not saying Mike McDaniel should be fired. I know people hear what they want to hear. So, a fourth time. I am not saying Mike McDaniel should be fired. But he has to change his approach. He has to change his philosophy because it's not working. It's year 3. He still can't get the plays in on time. It's year 3. His teams are not prepared to play good teams with a winning record as they pretty much lose every time in those matchups. It's year 3, and he's only got 1 win versus the Buffalo Bills, and in most of the games, he gets embarrassed by the Buffalo Bills. It's year 3, and his philosophy, which, he passes on to Chris Grier of, we don't need good offense. We don't need to spend a lot of money on centers, and we don't need to spend a lot of money on offensive guards, pay everyone else. That doesn't work. And it's year 3. The entire league is caught on to the Mike McDaniel offense. They know how to stop it, and he doesn't have a counter move or a plan B to counteract that. I know that Mike McDaniel just got a contract extension. And again, I'm not saying he should be fired. That's 5 times I've said it. But coaches' contracts don't count against the salary cap. And if he doesn't fix these issues soon, he won't come close to seeing the year 2028 as the Miami Dolphins head coach. Stephen Ross spends more money filling up his boat with gas than it would be for him to cut bait with Mike McDaniel a year from now or 2 years from now if things don't change. Mike McDaniel needs to do some serious self-introspection and make some major changes. Whatever he is currently doing isn't working. I know they made playoffs back-to-back years. Folks, that's in the past. They also didn't win anything in the playoffs. They also squandered an 8-3 start to a season and squandered a 9-3 start to a season. If the only thing you can hang your hat on is we were wild card teams of back-to-back years, move on. Expect more, want better. Okay? And again, I will say this. For those of you who are unable to hear criticism of someone you root for and not understand, I am not calling him to be fired. This is constructive criticism, as they say. I am saying he needs to admit his weak points and failures and correct them. It's year 3, and the same mistakes are made over and over and over again, and that's unacceptable. He can't get the plays in on time, okay? He can't, time management. Week 1, end of the first half, you're losing. He went the last 5+ minutes with no timeouts. He squandered them all, okay? And then this past week, right before halftime, you're losing. You're getting your butts whipped, and he's dinking and dunking up the field. He finally gets into the red zone. He's got no time left. He's forced to settle for a field goal. The time management's not working. Just the basic things of sending in a play on time. He still can't win a challenge, although he hasn't tried one this year. He still never wins them. It's probably time to let Frank Smith take over play calling duties. I know last offseason, right when they lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs, well, I'll think about it. He must have thought about it a real short time because come like April or May, he said, he goes, I'm going to keep doing it. Mike, it's not working. Mike, here's the deal. Mike McDaniel gets an A+ when it comes to drawing up plays, finding mismatches, drawing up offensive schemes and philosophies. But when it comes to actually calling which play to call in which situation, he's a deer in the headlights. He can't get him in on time. And I know they're number 1 offense last year. So, but again, they're number 1 offense because they, racked up a bunch of yards and points versus the Panthers, the Patriots twice, the Jets twice were miserable last year. And of course, the Denver Broncos when they scored. And the Giants, you're going to rack up a ton of yards and points, which will skew the numbers in the weeks, when you play Philly or the Chiefs or the Bills and you do nothing on offense. You can't even get to 20 points. So I don't care that they're number 1 on offense last year because in the big moments, in the key times, in the crucial times, your offense runs and hides. It's probably time to let Frank Smith, you draw up the plays, but let Frank call them during the game because then it allows you to focus on the whole team, offense and defense and special teams, and it lets Frank just focus on the offense to where he could probably get the plays in a little bit quicker than you because that's his one sole job on that day. Again, Mike McDaniel should not be fired, but he's got a lot of things to fix. And if he's just refusing to, because it's the same problems he had as a rookie head coach. Everyone cut him some slack. Rookie head coach, he'll learn. Then we go into last year. Well, it's pretty much the same problems and pretty much the same results. You run out to a fast start, 9-3, totally collapse. Everyone, oh, there's a lot of injuries. Okay, but some of those losses were because of him. And he's just failing to fix some of the mistakes that he controls. Now it's year 3, and everything that, has failed year 1 and year 2 with him, we've seen so far through 2 games. And yeah, they won one of them, but good God, Mike, he's a smart guy. He went to an Ivy League school. Fix some of this stuff. For the love of God, fix some of this stuff that he can control. And it's just, he's got a lot to fix. Otherwise, the old saying that the NFL stands for not for long, unfortunately, not going to be this year, but he's got to fix it. So again, I know this wasn't the most positive, uplifting show, but guess what, folks? We keep it honest here. I'm not going to blow sunshine up your ass and tell you everything's good. It's not right now. It's not good, unfortunately. And this Miami Dolphins team is at a crossroads in week 3 of the 2024 season, and we're going to see where they go. And a lot of where they go depends on Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel. And that is one thought we can have in our head. While simultaneously having a thought that we send our best wishes to our quarterback who's injured at this time and who's trying to get better, heal up, and make some big life decisions. And we send all the best to Tua. 2 things can be true at the same time. We are smart people who can hold simultaneous thoughts in our head at the same time. And that's kind of where I'm at. So wish him nothing but the best, Tua. And when he decides to come back, if he decides to come back, open arms for you. But as an organization, there's some tough decisions to be made moving forward. And it starts now in week 3 of 2024 that you can't sit around and wait. Every minute you wait is wasted. What they do in the short term this season at quarterback will have ramifications. And what they do in the offseason at quarterbacks didn't have bigger ramifications, because this is not a healthy way to run an organization. And they need to have some tough conversations and make some tough decisions. All right, everyone, thank you for listening to today's show. Be sure to visit the website, DolphinsTalk.com. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at DolphinsTalk. Also on Instagram, Threads, TikTok, all those social media platforms at DolphinsTalk. Dolphins Talk Extra, patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Sign up. We're having a ton of fun over there. I really think you'll like it, and it's so cheap. $3 a month or $5 a month. Sort of is what it is. There, I think there's a lot of stuff that if you want to get your mind off the Dolphins, Dolphins Talk Extra is kind of the place for you to go, as we have a lot of fun talking about, even non-Miami Dolphins topics, if you just like to hear us in our banter on various subjects. And also, wherever you're listening to this podcast, hit the subscribe button. And if you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. It's much appreciated. Everyone, have a great rest of your Sunday. Have a great start to your week. We'll talk to you again after a while. And folks, don't forget, we still must put an end to highway profanity.